Hello, Radiant One, and welcome to the Golden Frequency, the show and podcast sharing wisdom, experiences, tools, and knowledge for and from the new era, weaving the worlds of seen and unseen, spiritual and practical, magical and mundane. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, energy alignment method mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Maria Saraphina. I serve soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneurs and holistic business owners wanting to grow and expand from within, as well as lead with love in business and life. If you have yet to join my sacred newsletter community of Radiant Ones, here to support the unveiling, the awakening, healing, and transformation of all through the lifting of the frequency and vibration of our realm, personally and collectively, I invite you to join us. Go to mariasarafina.com/EAM, where you'll also receive my free guide to the 5 steps of the energy alignment method, designed to support you in recognizing and releasing stagnant, stale, or stuck energy in every area of your life and business, as well as create flow and align you to that which you do desire. On my website, you will also find show notes, transcripts, and previous episodes. Know that I always encourage you to listen with an open heart and an open mind and take only what serves you and leave the rest. It is my deep honor, my great pleasure and joy to share this episode with you. Here is today's episode. Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome into today's episode, in which I'm going to be diving into a frustration that a friend recently shared with me, and I know that it's something that comes up in sessions with clients. It's something that I have had happen to me as well. So I'm very excited to be diving into that topic with you today. However, very first, I want to share with you that I am going to be doing a free masterclass and immersion called The Heart-Centered Way of Business. And it's starting on the 20th of September 2021. So depending on when you're listening to this, this might actually have taken place, or you might be right on time and it's time for you to join. In the masterclass, I'm going to go through the 4 guiding principles that I have uncovered, discovered, and worked with through the last, I want to say, almost 15 years of work, as well as the 7 initiations that I see any soul-driven, heart-based spiritual entrepreneur, holistic business owner, Magdalene Rising, Golden Grit Keeper go through or move through in various ways. And that is really no matter whether you're at the beginning of your journey, whether you have been on your entrepreneurial path for a while or for a very long time. There are these initiations that we continually seem to be going through. And so in this free masterclass and immersion, I am going to be taking you through those. The ultimate keyword for this masterclass and immersion is, as always for me, practical implementation, because I want to give you not just the knowledge and the tools, I want you to show you how you can move through that. And I want you to actually implement it so that you can see a difference in your business and your life. Wisdom is really nothing. Like, you can receive a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and there's information available to you 24/7, no matter where you are almost in the world. However, it is the practical implementation of that, what you choose to do with that information, that makes all the difference. So I hope that you will join me for that free masterclass and immersion. It's going to take place, like I said, starting September 20th, 2021. We are probably going to be doing more than one. So if you come to this episode after that date, go to mariasarafina.com/immersion, because I have more of these probably coming up as well. And so I'm just going to repeat that. If you want to join me for this free masterclass and immersion, where the keyword is practical implementation, and the title is The Heart-Centered Way of Business, go to mariasarafina.com/immersion. That's that. Now, we're going to be diving in, like I said, into a topic that it was a dear friend who recently, in a conversation, very frustrated said to me, like, why is it that why do I have to push through my comfort zone? Why do I have to move out of my comfort zone? Why is everyone and their grandmothers telling me to go beyond my comfort zone? Why can't I just be comfortable in doing this work? And this is someone who has recently jumped onto her entrepreneurial path, and so I have watched her grow and expand, and it's been a blessing to see. And so I completely understand the notion of why do I have to be uncomfortable in order for this to take place? And I'm gonna kind of dissect it, and then I'm also gonna give you some examples and hopefully some ways that you can actually move through it, what you need to do or want to do in a way that's more quote unquote comfortable. First of all, I want to say that I don't know if it's bro marketing, but there seems to be this notion that everything, like, you have to bust through your blocks, and everything you have to push through your comfort zone in order to get to nirvana, to get to the golden gates, or this is where all the magic happens, is beyond your comfort zone. And while I understand that there is some truth in that, because as I've shared plenty in this show and podcast and all of the other ones that I've done, is that there is a natural expansion that happens as we grow as human beings, or as souls having a human experience. We grow. However, we could choose to whether that should happen through love or through fear. And if you walk with me for a while, you probably know which one I am going to choose or have chosen. But there's like I said, there seems to be this notion, and I've seen it especially when it comes to investment, like you have to be, if you're not scared of making some sort of investment, then you're not really into it. And that's, like, to me, is just BS. It's fear-based marketing. It is having people go beyond what they're actually capable of at that very moment in time. And so for me, that's like a total no-go. It's also why whenever I do my free discovery sessions, when I work one-on-one with people, I never ask for a credit card at the end of our session, because I allow for people to take time to actually sit with that decision that they have made. 99% of people know that they want to work with me before they even come into that session. However, I want to, after they've experienced the magic that does happen, I want to give them that moment of truly grounding that in. So that's why I don't do that, because to me, it's just, no, it's a no-go. So while like I said, there is a fundamental truth to quote unquote going beyond our comfort zone, because it's what happens in nature. We're always ever growing and expanding. However, that growth and that expansions come through love. Now, what I have experienced, and both personally and with clients as well over the years, is that if the gap between where you are at and to where you want to go, if that is too big, usually the fear that entails is so great that you end up focusing on the fear rather than focusing on where you want to go. And so rather than finding a love-based solution or approach to where it is that you want to go, you end up focused on all the reasons why fear is showing up. And so you end up working on, it's like a distraction. You end up working on all the other things rather than where you actually want to go or be. And so what I do is that I invite you to focus on the solution, or invite in the solution, rather than getting caught up in all of the, I don't want to say details, because it is important. So for example, to give you an example, what I mean is that rather than focusing on where you want to go, you begin looking at, why don't I have the confidence to do this? Why am I procrastinating? Why do I have upper limits? Or what are my money blocks? Or what are the limiting beliefs? And all of these are very valid inner workings that absolutely I invite you to work through. However, I invite you to work through them as well as still keeping an eye on where is it that I want to go. Because if you lose sight of that and just start focusing on, maybe there's a meditation for confidence or whatever it is, like there's a solution to my confidence, then you kind of lose sight of where it was that you wanted to go in the first place. And then that becomes your main priority, if that makes sense. And also, one of the things that's really important for me to say, which is such a shame and something that's not, I don't want to say it's been coming up for me, but because it's very apparent, is that within a lot of the self-help industry, like the self-help industry is a huge market today. And there is, for a lot of the big players, and if a lot of players in the market, there is money in keeping you stuck on your pain points and keeping you stuck in the triggers. So by constantly focusing on that which you're lacking rather than where you want to go, they are keeping you stuck in a negative, downward spiraling pattern or loop rather than be uplifting. And so my invitation, if you're someone who has been consuming a lot of different books and methods and all these stuff, is to ask yourself, truly, has these served me, helped me? Like, do they tear me down or do they lift me up? Like, is there truly a solution? And I understand that some of us have to go through different methodologies and different ways for us to find what resonates for us and what is true for us. I understand and I recognize that. So that's not what I'm talking about, because that's actually I see that as a search for what serves you. But there is also within the industry a wanting to keep you stuck in that loop so that you continuously buy whatever it is, the next thing that they're selling. And keeping you stuck in that. So I wanted to get that out of the way. But I also recognize and honor the importance of inner work. Like it's, I full stop. I recognize that. Now, for me, the solution to, if the gap between where you want to go and where you're at right now is big, or two things. Number one, focus on whether, not focus, but check and see whether it's too big. If the gap between where you want to be and the gap where you're at right now, whether it's in terms of what you're doing or who you want to be or changes or behaviors, things that you want to change, if that's too big, you may end up, like I said, muddled with fear, and being stuck in that, because even that distance is too far. So you may want to readjust, not because you don't want to go full out and where you want to go, but in order to adjust, you allow yourself to actually get to a place where you can acknowledge yourself for taking the steps toward that and achieving things. And in the achievement and the accomplishments, that then expands even further and creates more momentum and more energy that is positive for you. However, the solution for me is also twofold. Number one is small steps. As I just mentioned, you can either readjust, but you can also do small steps. And there has been this, I've been sharing this for years, and then over the summer, I actually discovered, someone introduced me to a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'll leave a link in the description. And literally what he describes, or he has quantified and scientified, is what I've been saying for years. It shows how small changes, small steps actually bring about big changes. So small steps equals big changes, which may not initially sound right, but if you once you start doing it, you will actually see it works. So that's the first thing, small steps. And then there's also, like I said, the inner work. And the inner work is different things, but for me especially, it it involves energy work, of course. Now, I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to give you some real life example of what this means. And as I go through these, examples, these might not like directly apply to you. So have an open mind and open heart and see how these could apply to you and in which ways they could apply to you. Because what I want you to do is I want you to take away what serves you and then leave the rest, as I've already shared in my intro. And I want to inspire and empower you to see how this could be possible or how this could work for you. So the small steps, big changes. So for example, number one is that really springs to mind for me is when I first started the Magdalene Voices, which is the first podcast that I had. I was terrified of being on camera. I had, for years before then, tried to do, what was it called? Periscope. I think this just shows my age. There's probably people listening or watching this who have no idea what Periscope is. But it was like an app. I suppose it's kind of like what TikTok maybe is today, or Instagram Lives. I don't know, but I was trying to do that and it was terrifying me. Everything was just coming up for me. And so me doing the show, when that idea was introduced to me, it was also introduced as a way of interviewing people. And so what I started out with was the first very many episodes of the Magdalene Voices were really interviews or sacred conversations, as I like to call them, where I was listening in and I was interviewing. I was having sacred conversations with beautiful, illuminating souls. And so through that, I then gained the experience of being on camera, the experience of recording, of not editing, of like, because that was one of the premises, was there's no edit. It's like start and stop. That's it. We don't edit in between. And so that was a small change a small step that created a huge change for me, because it gave me the option or the possibility to then start doing these episodes on my own. And if you walk with me for a while, you'll see that there are now plenty of solo episodes out there, but there wasn't in the beginning at all. Another thing is the product or the online program that I've recently put out that has to do with the human design gates and the gene keys. That was the way that was brought forth was I allowed myself to take, quote unquote, a small step, in that I did not have to complete all 64 gates or keys in one go. Instead, what I did was I've made the promise that every month there will be at least 2 new ones that are coming out, which in and of itself is plenty of content for people to walk through and to work through in that program. So that was a small change. A small step that's created a big change, because now there is an online program that serves people that go through that program. Next is, in terms of clients, very often what I like to look at, if someone has some people do have a job, but most people are already entrepreneurs in one arena, but they want to shift their work from one arena to the next. And rather than just saying, I am done with this and going into the new, which some people do, and I fully honor that. If it's time, it's time. But most people go through a phase where what we do is we implement some sort of guideline or rule for them, where they shift out of the work that they have been doing into the new, meaning that we increase what they want to do while decreasing. So for example, if they're someone who's working with clients, whether it be, as an illustrator or as a therapist or as a yoga teacher or a psychologist, whatever it may be, we start by increasing that which you do want, whether it is you want to work on your own stuff, whether you want to start coaching, whether you want to do it online rather than in person. We start by increasing that which you do want whilst simultaneously decreasing that which you don't, so that you also have, and this is very important, the stability and the foundation and the security, so that financially you're not just like looking at one big empty gaping hole and you're abandoning everything that you've already done. So that is, like, I like to call it my 80-20 rule, but it can be 70-30. It can vary for you. So looking at, maybe you're a photographer and what you really want to do is you want to start mentoring people or work with people in a different capacity, then start by increasing that which you do want while decreasing the other stuff. Another way to do it is, I remember this from a client I had. This was in the very beginning, and I've probably shared this story before, is that what we looked at when he was going through his things was that we looked at clients that his bread and butter work, so to speak, had to bring him 80% of his income while just taking 20% of his time. So that, which then gave him 80% of time to work on his own stuff and 20% to work on his client stuff. And everything that did not meet those requirements, he then was referencing out to other people. He was sending out to other people. And what that did was that decreased his sense of frustration and irritation with himself and the client that just kept coming because he was brilliant at what he did and what he does. And instead, he then increased his other work, which is, I believe, what he now fully lives off. But I think he does still take some 80% clients because of what it brings in terms of an income and a stability and security. And the world that we live in, money is simply the currency that we use. So maybe it is also, let's say that you're a therapist and you're starting, like you're wanting to start an office. This was an example that I was recently given and I thought it was brilliant. A therapist that's starting an office, but maybe you don't either have the amount of clients in order to sustain that office, or maybe you just don't want to. Maybe you want to define your work life differently. And so you gather a group of people, and maybe you have a group of people where this is like your office. You bring a group of people. You don't have to do it on your own or by yourself. You can actually gather people and then have that office, and you can split it. Like each have 1 day or 2 days, or set up a booking system for it in whichever way, shape, or form that works for you. So that's another small step that creates a big change. You get an office, but you don't have all of the it's not all on you. Then if you are someone who is employed, I had a client, or have a client actually, I've worked with her for years, where she wanted again to move into being more entrepreneurial and more independent. And what she did was she had a chat with her employer, and they changed her contract from one of full-time employee to freelancer, meaning that she could work from anywhere where she wanted to go. She could sit at a coffee shop and work from there if she wanted to do that. She could stay at home. She could take her kids to school and pick them up afterwards. She could walk the dog and still do the work. She could work at night when the kids were asleep. She could then mold and shape her time, the time that she was spending, into the way that she wanted it to do. And this contract or agreement that she had is a 1 year, so it's like renewed every year, and it has been for a long while now. It works for both parties, and because of the length of it, it's also again something that is sustainable and something that it's not it brings her security in knowing I have this stability, which is something that she wants. Maybe you're someone who doesn't need that. Maybe you're someone who just wants to have 3 months or whatever it is that you want to have in terms of that. So moving, that's an idea of moving from being, employed to moving into a freelancer. And of course, also depending on where in the world that you are and how the rules and the regulations are with that. Maybe you're someone who has either a physical presence and you're wanting to move your business from being in person to moving online. I recently have a client, or I do have a client, where that's something that we're working on. Her clients have been used to coming to her one-on-one in person, and now she's wanting to actually bring in more clients, but wanting them online because she wants to reach a wider audience and have more people from all over the world, like I do, have access to her. So that's something. Or maybe you're someone who wants to do the opposite. Maybe you're someone who has a thriving online business, and instead you want to now do in-person stuff, whether it is workshops or retreats, or simply have one day a week where you're doing something in person. Then again, increase and decrease, or find the right balance or alignment for you. Then there's the whole something that's interesting, is that the pricing. Money, 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 I like to say when it comes to that, because pricing is, I've already created an episode where I speak to the whole notion of charging what you're worth. At my core, your worth is beyond this world. So your prices can never quote unquote equal your worth because of who you are in truth. That's number one. But I'll share a link to that episode so you can go watch or listen to that. However, what I've noticed is that, again, when it comes to, like I said in the beginning, if the gap between where you want to be and the gap where you're at, if that's too big, the fear that then shows up might actually be too great of an obstacle, and so you can end up muddling through that rather than taking the small step that will actually bring you there. And to give you an example, I had this with my own pricing. I had been stuck at I had been at a price for a long time, and I knew that I wanted to move to a different price. And so I moved to that different price, and I immediately felt the shift, that something was off for me, and it was just energetically. And yes, I did work on it. Yes, I did release it, and still I knew that this was off. And so I can't remember if I don't think I reverted back, but I changed my prices into a different price. And the moment I landed at prices that I knew I felt right to me, that I knew that I was able to hold space for personally and business-wise, clients started flooding in again. Things opened up and things were just way more in flow. And so rather than me trying to continuously work through all the fear every day that showed up, I thought, okay, I'll just adjust the price and then I'll increase them as I go. So that is my invitation to you as well. Have a look at your pricing. Is your pricing one that you actually thrive with? Are you happy with it? Or is it is there an adjustment? And that can be either raising your prices or possibly decreasing your prices if you find that they're out of resonance with you. So that was one that I had. Also, I recently had someone tell me they wanted to be making millions, and absolutely, go girl. Remember that making $1 million is made by $1 million. So it's like $1,000,001. And so the looking at breaking that down, how are you going to be making $1 million? What does that look like? And what small steps do you need to take? Does that mean that you start putting out programs? Does that mean that you're doing workshops? Does that mean that you're increasing your prices? Does that mean that you're decreasing your prices? Does it what small steps will create big changes for you, or big shifts for you in terms of that? Then there is the final one, well, a couple final ones. That is if you have a book you want to write, or a tarot deck you want to create, or an oracle deck, or a program, anything that you want something that is asking to be born through you. 15 minutes a day is better than none. So if you want to write a book, I once had a client where I said they literally had no, quote unquote, no time in the day to do anything. Well, if you don't have, quote unquote, any time in the day to do anything, create 15 minutes. We can all create 15 minutes in a day, and 15 minutes in a day will amount to, if you're doing it over a week, an hour and a half, and then that's in a month, that's 5 hours of writing rather than none. And so taking a small step can create a big change if you do it I'm not going to say consistently, because I know that there's like the word, but yes, consistently, but also, you may not do it like every day. Maybe you do it 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, or 5 days a week. But again, 15 minutes a day is better than nothing at all. So, and that goes for anything. It's the same thing if you don't have a newsletter. It's better than doing one newsletter a month than it is to do none. It's better to show up once on Instagram or Facebook than it is to show up none. It is like we have gotten so attached to these big notions and we see all these people and it's like, oh, I can be Oprah, oh, I can be this person, but we don't see all of the work, all of the tiny, tiny steps that they have taken each and every day to get to that point. And when I say each and every day, it's okay to have an off day. It's okay to rest. I do that as well. It's okay to take time off. It's okay to rest. It's okay to be in the space of just being rather than doing. And I hope that that's what's coming through with this. So what my ultimate thing is, like, you can stretch yourself without necessarily fully breaking. And so this was a response to the notion of, can I do this without having to constantly move beyond my comfort zone? And my answer is yes, you can. You can do it. You can do it with love. And yes, there will also be times where it will be uncomfortable, where it will feel uncomfortable. That's part of the journey too. But you don't have to live in that space all of the time. That is my experience. That is what I teach, what I preach, what I do, how I live, while also recognizing that there is that trepidation when you are putting something new up. Just before doing this episode, I knew that I was going to share about the masterclass and the immersion, and I felt the fear come up, and I was like, whoo, and the fear and the excitement of it as well. I'm really excited about it. So, in closing, 2 things. Number 1 is, would you please share one small step that you either have taken or do take in order to begin your path to the big changes? Because the more of us that share different, I've given you plenty of examples. However, the more of us that can share examples of what you're doing and what we're doing, the more we can inspire people to see, oh, that might be me, or this is something that I could do. So I would love for you to share that in the comments below. And secondly, come join me for the free masterclass at Immersion, the heart-centered way of business, where you'll get the 4 guiding principles, the 7 initiations, and the keyword is practical implementation. So you actually get it under your skin. You actually do the work. There's going to be a Telegram group. I'm going to be live. I'm going to be active. It's going to be so much fun, and I hope that you will join us. That is all I had for you today. I am sending you so much love and wish that you have a wonderful day wherever in the world you might be. Bye. Radiant One, I hope today's episode served you well. For all the deeds and details, click the link in the description. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, so that the love shared within this episode through our connection may be amplified and rippled out further into the world. Thank you. I love you.